Trustees Henry Golden, Eddie Thomas, would you please escort Secretary James to the lectern? Trustee Bush, would you please join me at the lectern as well?
I am proud to introduce Secretary Deborah Lee James of the United States Air Force. Secretary James began her career over 30 years ago as a staff member of the U.S. House Armed Services Committee. She had a pretty awesome nickname on the committee. She was known as Sledge because of her sledgehammer approach to the job. Since assuming her post over 2 years ago, Secretary James has led the Air Force through tough sequestration-driven budget cuts, painful drawdowns of airmen, and the ending of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now she is leading the Air Force-led bombing campaign against the Islamic State. Well-versed in Washington politics, she knows how to get things done in an era of gridlock and political stalemates. Always rising above the fray, Secretary James has led the Air Force with grace and integrity and a commitment to transparency.
There is no question that Deborah Lee James is a defender and a protector of the American dream. For 30 years, she has played a senior role in homeland and national security, both in the federal government and the private sector. In 2013, she was appointed the 23rd Secretary of the U.S. Air Force. I hereby present Deborah Lee James, whose leadership and dedication to our country make her a fitting candidate for the college's Doctor of Humane Letters.
Deborah Lee James, your devotion, patriotism, guidance, and service to our nation are honorable and impressive contributions. The College of Charleston is proud to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters.
By the authority of the state of South Carolina, granted to the Board of Trustees of the College of Charleston and committed to me, I declare Deborah Lee James is now admitted to the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters of the College of Charleston, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereto appertaining. Congratulations, Dr. James.
Thank you. What a special honor. Thank you so much.
Let's take that flavor. Now for remarks from our commencement speaker, Dr. James. Dr. James, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President McConnell, for that kind introduction and also for this prestigious degree. I am totally blown away. It's a huge, huge honor for me. And to all of our distinguished guests, to members of the faculty, family, friends, and most importantly, to the class of 2016, many, many congratulations on your achievement. Today, incidentally, marks only the second combined graduation, where the graduate school, along with the undergraduate School of the Arts, the School of Professional Studies, and the School of Education, Health, and Human Performance culminate their years of hard work with this fantastic celebration. And needless to say, it is a great privilege for me to be able to be here and to share this special day with all of you. Now, as you heard, I am the 23rd Secretary of the Air Force, but before any of that happened, I want all of you to know that I am, first and foremost, a mom. And so I understand very, very well how all of the very proud moms and dads and grandparents and siblings and guardians who are sitting out there today, I understand how you are feeling. And so I want to say to the graduates here today, none of you would have achieved what you have today achieved without the support of all of those who love you and who have cared for you and who have brought you to this very important moment. So let's give it up for the family and friends of the graduates of 2016. Now, on a personal note, I want all of you to know it is always a treat for me to return to Charleston, and I say return because, you see, I lived and worked here full-time during the period 2007 to 2010. At that point, I was the general manager of a unit under the company SAIC, and in addition to that, very importantly, I served on the advisory board of the School of Languages, Cultures, and World Affairs. So I know the College of Charleston very, very well. In fact, my husband Frank and I, we still own property down here because we love the beautiful landscape, the rich culture, and of course, most of all, we love the people. Charleston's beauty is rivaled only by its history and tradition. From Fort Sumter to Rainbow Row, and from gourmet restaurants to sweetgrass baskets, Charleston is truly a world-class city. And beauty abounds on this campus as well, but most especially beauty abounds here in Cistern Yard with the ancient oaks and the Spanish moss, and not to mention all of you in your beautiful white dresses, crisp dinner jackets. You are killing it. You are looking fantastic, class of 2016. And you definitely have history as well here at the College of Charleston. You're the oldest college south of Virginia, and Randolph Hall, just right here behind me, maintains the oldest active classrooms in the United States. And most important of all, the College of Charleston honors tradition. For decades, freshmen have passed through the arch at Porter's Lodge on the first day, and they've exited the Cistern Yard by passing underneath that same arch on this, the last day. And on the arch is a Greek inscription. You already heard President McConnell reference it moments ago. There's two simple words. And by the way, it's the same inscription that greeted visitors to the Temple of Apollo at Delphi in ancient Greece. The inscription reads, "Know thyself," a phrase that has challenged humankind for literally thousands of years. Now, I can't begin to cover the Greek classics in the same way that a College of Charleston Arterium Baccalaureatus can, but what I would like to do instead is I'd like to give you my personal take on what it means to know thyself. In my experience, both personal and professional, knowing yourself really comes down to three things, and I call them the 3 Ps. Know your purpose, know your people, and know your principles. So let's start with knowing your purpose, and I'll begin with a personal story, a story about me. When I was about your age, I knew I wanted to do policy work in the government. I knew that I wanted to work on important national issues and be part of a team where I could find a purpose to serve something that was bigger than myself. And very specifically, I wanted, in those days, to be a diplomat. I wanted to be a member of the Foreign Service. So here's how it all went down for me. I grew up in the state of New Jersey. I went to Duke University, then directly to graduate school at Columbia University, where I earned a master's degree in international affairs. And I did pretty well, if I do say so myself. I got good grades, I held several internships, and I spoke fluent Spanish. I then moved to Washington and applied to the Foreign Service. And then my dream went bust. Because you see, I got turned down, and I was devastated. I remember crying for literally 3 days straight, and I didn't know what to do. But then finally, on the 4th day, I got out of bed and I started applying elsewhere. And finally, I landed a job with the Department of the Army. It took a while, but I stood with it and I kept on going. Now, the Department of the Army in those days wasn't my heart's desire, but at that point, I was just grateful to have a job. So I threw myself into the work and I did the best that I could. And then, And then, within a few months, the most remarkable things started happening for me. First of all, I had a fantastic, wonderful boss, somebody who took an interest in my career, someone who gave me great advice, turned out to be my first big mentor in life. Mentors have been very, very important to me. And then the second thing that happened was I had really, really supportive colleagues. I was the youngest one by far, but they all took me under their wing. They taught me, and so I found that great team that I was hoping to find. And then the third thing, and perhaps most importantly of all, I had found that interesting work. It wasn't the way I originally thought it would be. It wasn't the Foreign Service, but now I was serving our military. I was working on important national security issues. So you see, I had that purpose that was so much bigger than just myself. The opportunities that followed afterward launched me on what you heard has turned out to be a 30-plus year career in defense. I subsequently went on to work in the Congress for the House Armed Services Committee, and later, in the 1990s, I was an Assistant Secretary of Defense for Reservist Affairs. And then I went out, I served in industry for 14 years in defense industry, 3 years of which was right here in Charleston, where I was able to help deliver for our soldiers on the ground important vehicles called MRAPs that were life-saving for those who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now, I am the Secretary of the Air Force. I'm telling you, it doesn't get any more epic than that. It's knocking my hat off, it's so epic. So you see, I didn't end up in the Foreign Service, but my purpose, my original purpose, which was to serve this great nation, never really changed. It never really did. And neither, I suspect, has yours. Because you see, for the last 4 years, and longer for those of you who have been in the graduate school, I suspect you've had a few purposes. Purpose to obtain a fantastic education, to grow intellectually, to think critically, obviously to graduate, that's a key purpose, and to prepare for the future. And this is exactly as it should have been. Today now, you need to shift, and you need to look inward once again, find new goals, new directions, but perhaps not really a new purpose. Maybe like me, you had a fairly specific dream, and you'll devote all you have to achieving it. And even if your plan A ends up turning into plan B, like it did for me, that's okay. I'm here to attest to that fact. Maybe, on the other hand, your purpose today is less well-defined. Maybe you're still searching. And just like you heard the president said, that's okay too. You may not have all the answers right now, but you are very, very fortunate because the College of Charleston has given you an educational and a moral compass that is going to help guide you in the next chapter of your lives. As I mentioned, I wanted a career in service, and it's been the privilege of my professional lifetime to serve as the Secretary of the Air Force, and I certainly love being an airman. And there's no question in my mind that our Air Force, as well as the entire U.S. military, we have some of the finest young talent that America has to offer. And that now brings me to my second point, my second P. To know yourself, you need to know your people. Because you see, now that you are graduating, many of you will make decisions that will directly or indirectly affect the lives of others. Eventually, most of you will become leaders in your chosen fields. And when you lead others, that is a sacred, sacred responsibility, and you must take it very, very seriously. Knowing your people means having the ability to walk a mile in their shoes. So let me give you an example. The Air Force has more than 660,000 airmen. And during the last 2.5 years that I've been on the job, I've done my best to get to know my people. I do this by spending roughly half of my time in Washington, in the Pentagon, going to Capitol Hill, but the other half I spend on the road, getting to know our airmen in the United States as well as overseas. I've traveled to on the order of 80 bases across 36 states and 31 countries, including Iraq and Afghanistan. And all the while, I've tried to listen very, very closely to our airmen and their stories. And several recurring themes emerge from these trips. One is that we are the busiest Air Force, the busiest that we have ever been in the 30-plus years that I have been an observer on the scene. And this is precisely because we live now in such a complex and in many ways dangerous world. Number two, our airmen are, like many Americans, struggling with what I'll call work-life balance. The fact that we are so busy, the fact that we have so many deployments, so many family separations, this plays into it big time. And third, because we've been in a tight budget situation, the budget has forced us to make some tough choices, including downsizing our airmen, which has in a way created a vicious cycle. A smaller force is shouldering an increasing workload, and of course this puts significant strain on our people. So I took some actions after hearing these concerns. Number one, we stopped that downsizing, and now we're growing our Air Force. And certainly I personally know what it's like to juggle career and family, and so we've now changed some family policies, we've set up opportunities for some sabbaticals, and we're working with Congress to try to boost funding in key areas, all of which are designed to make the lives of our airmen a little easier so that they can continue to protect your freedoms and my freedoms. So the lesson here to me is whether you're in the military or in the private sector, knowing your people, knowing their concerns, their challenges is critical, and then doing something, taking action to improve it, working to serve them, that's even more critical. But to know your people, you also have to earn their respect and their trust, and it's only by remaining steadfastly anchored to your principles, and by the way, principles, that's the third P, and that's the only way that this can occur. In the Air Force, our principles are known as core values: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do. These core values, these principles, underpin everything that we do in the U.S. Air Force. The College of Charleston students and graduates, I believe, exhibit these same characteristics. When it comes to integrity, look to the example of John Charles Fremont, class of 1836, who went on to become a Union general and the governor of Arizona. In 1861, Fremont issued a proclamation publicly opposing slavery. And by the way, in 1861, it would have been far more easier for him to have remained silent. Fremont demonstrated integrity, and as you graduate, integrity must be your foundation. It will be the bedrock upon which everything else builds. In terms of service, there's no shortage of service before self here at the College of Charleston. From the dance marathon that you held earlier this year to benefit the MUSC Children's Hospital, to the numerous student volunteers and community projects, you truly epitomize the spirit of service already. Service, by the way, doesn't always have to be something big. It can be the smallest of things. A wave, a smile, a kind word, asking how somebody's doing, all of these things make a big, big difference. And if there's one thing I know about Charleston, there's plenty of Southern charm down here. So keep this up throughout your lives. Don't forget those lessons learned. Last but not least, excellence in all that we do. The Air Force prides itself on being the greatest Air Force on the planet, and we are great precisely because of our airmen, who do their best to work very hard on any task given each and every day, no matter how large or how small. Since its founding in 1770, alumni of this institution have left their mark on the world. Alumni like Robert Mills, who studied here in the late 18th century. He, by the way, designed the Washington Monument. And then you have Anthony Johnson, class of 1998, who made his mark in the NBA, the National Basketball Association. And then, my personal favorite, graduates like Dr. Chantal Cousineau-Krieger, class of 2000, she's one of ours, an Air Force ophthalmologist, or Lawrence Swing, class of 2011, who's now working as the Deputy Chief of Staff in the U.S. House of Representatives. And then there is the mighty class of 2016. Yeah. We have here a group of young men and women who have spent the last few years of their lives dedicated to academic excellence. You've excelled in college, and I have no doubt you will excel in life, which now brings me full circle. Your college journey started through Porter's Lodge, and in a few moments, you'll close this chapter through that same passageway. And as you pass beneath the arch and into an exciting and dynamic world, May the power of your knowledge sustain your flight through life. Know thyself. Know your purpose and serve it. Know your people and take care of them. Know your principles and let integrity guide you always. Let it be your foundation. Thank you and congratulations to the class of 2016.